morning. It is, what's today? The August 20th? So we've planted our garden about almost 3 months ago. So like 2.5 months ago. And at first it was a real big disappointment. I thought that I was a super big failure because our plants were not very big and we didn't see much, like, I don't even know what I expected to happen, but I was comparing my garden to other people's gardens, like, and their vegetables and stuff, and it was just really sad looking. And then all of a sudden we got like a ton of rain and then some sun and my garden exploded. And so it's like, I think I've decided we're about a month behind. Don't walk through there, Maddie, please. I just decided that my garden is a late bloomer, and I think that our growing season here in Fairbanks area is like a lot shorter and later than I'm used to. So that has taken quite a bit of adjustment. Just understanding that things are going to produce a lot later. Hi, buddy. Things are going to produce a lot later, and so we have gotten one really gigantic zucchini off of my zucchini plant, and when we go back in the house I'll show it to you. But today we're looking at the plants and we've got a couple of zucchinis that we can pick, and I'll show you the corn. We don't have any corn yet, which I found out after we planted the corn that corn doesn't grow well in this area. And we don't have any beans yet, but the plants are loaded with blossoms. So when they finally do bring forth beans, it's going to be like we're going to have beans coming out of our ears. I have a ton of cilantro, a ton of, I don't know if you can see, a ton of dill. My oregano took off. My thyme took off, and our cucumbers are looking pretty good also.
One second.
Okay. So this is our dill. It really exploded, and I like to grow dill. My cucumbers aren't looking great. I thought that I would have a lot more cucumbers so we could make pickles, so I was growing dill also. Looks like we have more than enough dill to do as many pickles as we wanted to, but I don't have a whole lot of cucumbers, so the dill we're just going to dry and store it. And then our oregano's looking pretty good, and cilantro. I love to grow fresh cilantro. And then rosemary. I think that the rosemary, I'm going to dig it up and put it in a pot and take it inside. It's been really cold this growing season, and I think that's why my garden hasn't done as well as I expected it to. Basil also is looking pretty pitiful. So I'm going to just put those in pots and take them in for the year. And then thyme's looking pretty good. And then I've got sage and mint chocolate mint in the pot. This is actually a Japanese cucumber plant that a friend gave me, and we have gotten 2 cucumbers off of it, and it looks like there's another one right in the middle, and a couple more blossoms on. And then these are just regular cucumber plants that we are growing, and I think they are starting to look really good, but I'm worried that that it's going to get too cold pretty soon for them to produce much. So we're just going to see what we can get off of them. This is a melon plant. I cannot remember if it's watermelon or cantaloupe.
Mommy.
It looks pretty good, but given that we only have a couple weeks left before it probably will be too cold, I don't know that we'll get anything off of it. I'll be really surprised. Okay, so they say that everything's bigger in Texas, but I think that's a lie. Everything is bigger in Alaska because I have gotten the most gigantic zucchinis I've ever seen in my life off of these plants. And we're actually going to pick them today, and this plant is really producing well, and I've got another one over here, and these plants are really producing well. I've got several zucchinis ready to go. And then this is yellow squash. And I mean, I've counted probably 15 yellow squashes on this plant alone. I suspect this plant has blossom rot, which is a product of not having enough calcium because of too much rain. So I probably am going to go to the greenhouse and pick up some organic fertilizer with calcium and go ahead and apply that to the plants just to protect them from blossom rot any further so that we can actually have a good crop of squash. I plan to cook this squash fresh, and eat it while it's producing, but I also plan to freeze some and store it for the winter. And you can see that the beans have like a ton of blossoms on them, but no beans yet. So the corn has gotten really tall compared to the last video that I did, but so far I don't see any ears of corn on any of them. I don't think they're going to get tall enough. The growing season here in the Fairbanks area is a lot shorter than in other areas, so cold crops do a lot better here. And things like my cucumbers and stuff over there should have gone in the greenhouse, but I didn't know that. So next year we'll still grow cucumbers and tomatoes, but I think that we'll do them in the greenhouse so that maybe we'd have more success. However, we're not even going to mess with corn next year.
So I cut like at the back where it's the stem.
Uh-huh. Don't knock the blossoms off the other part. You can take the scissors apart and use them like a knife. Just like use one side. That's amazing. I set out in 2014 to teach myself and my family how to be self-sustaining and grow our own food. And while I feel like we've been successful in little ways, but the overall goal of putting away enough food to like basically supplement our income, or not supplement our income, but keep us from spending so much at the grocery store, has been largely unachieved. So I feel good about the size of our plants and how much we've gotten today, but I still feel it's a long way to go before we are stocking our freezer and our pantry with canned foods and frozen foods to get us through the winter. But this is a pretty good step. I feel good about this, and I feel good about the fact that even if I never achieve like a full freezer and a full pantry of canned goods and, homegrown meat to get us through the winter, I still feel good about teaching my kids the idea of growing their own food so that they can carry what they've learned from their childhood into their adulthood and continue learning and passing it on down the generations. I feel like with this pandemic that's been going on, there's been a lot of uncertainty, and because of the difficulty being able to go into a store without following all the requirements that they've put in place for you to be able to go in the grocery store and buy food for your family, I feel like that has helped me reconnect with the whole idea of why I set out doing this in the first place. And it's helped encourage me and keep me going even when it's gotten difficult and discouraging. I feel like we've accomplished a lot this year, even if it's not as much as I wanted to accomplish. I'm still learning, and I'm still working towards the ultimate goal, which is being able to put enough food away for the winter to not have to shop at the grocery store as much. So this over here is the end of our garden. The goal was to take the garden all the way down to the end where the chicken coop ends, and then that was going to be our space. But through this growing season, the trees have blocked this much sun. I feel like that's another reason why my garden hasn't done as well right where it is. So I am going to till all this up, but then I'm going to also go this way with the garden instead of further back. So I'm going to go ahead and get the tiller out now and get started on tilling all this space up in preparation for our garden for next year. I want to get this ground tilled up before the ground freezes this year, so that in the spring it will not be as much work to work up the ground in preparation for planting. a little update on how things are looking. It's a beautiful day today. We got rain last night and maybe this morning, I don't really know, I was kind of knocked out. But the garden looks so good. The sun's shining and it's been perfectly watered by God, and everything's looking really good and gigantic today. And then I wanted to show you the end result of my rhubarb looks really sad. The end result of my tilling. I did get this section tilled up. We're using this truck tarp right here to kill the grass in the sections that we're gonna work up for our garden. So it looks like the further back that we go, the more sun, or the better sun that the property gets. So I had thought that I wouldn't go all the way to the back of the chicken coop, but I think I decided that I am going to all work up. Oh, let me turn the camera around so I can tell what I'm showing you. So I am gonna go all the way down and then all the way across and then all the way down here, and all of this section here I'm gonna work up so that we can grow food. Now, my rhubarb was looking really good, but now it looks really terrible. I think, and this is just a suspicion, the kids like to jump on the trampoline with the sprinkler underneath, and I suspect that they ran the hose through my rhubarb to the trampoline. So that's why my rhubarb's looking pretty terrible. But I did get some really good cuttings from it this year, and next year I expect that it'll be bigger and I'm gonna split it. So what I did 2 days ago was I tilled all this up. It took about, I don't know, an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. It's a lot of work breaking ground, and look at, especially because there's like a ton of roots in this area. So I am gonna take it further down to like not just the end of the tarp, but like line it up with the end of the chicken coop. I do want to leave a little bit back there because we're going to end up putting pigs back there in the spring. So I want to leave space for the kids' trampoline and then pigs. But my next step is to move this tarp and move it over so it kills that grass and till this area up. Also, I need to till all of this up right here too. But I wanted to I've had a couple days to think about things since I recorded last. So I kind of wanted to update you guys on what I was thinking. So basically, the squash and the zucchini are doing really well. I have not had problems with growing that, except it looks like this plant right here. Let me see if I can find it. Well, no, maybe I was wrong. Well, yeah, look. Right here, you can see blossom rot on the end of this squash. Once the plant has blossom rot, or once the fruit of the plant has blossom rot, there's nothing you can do to save that fruit. But you can work in calcium to the ground to save any future fruit. So I mentioned this 2 days ago when I was recording, but I really need to get over to the nursery and purchase some organic calcium to put in the ground around these plants. Also, okay, so like I was saying, the squash and zucchini are doing really well. The herbs are doing really well. I feel like I was really discouraged, but I feel a lot more encouraged now because I noticed, or like I've learned that I'm just growing the wrong vegetables. So I decided that, we're expanding the garden. I plan to get all of this worked up before the ground freezes, so that when I go to work up the ground in the spring, I don't have to break ground. I just have to work it up for planting. So next year we are going to focus, we're not even going to try to grow corn.
Depending on how the beans do, like I said, right now we've got a ton of blossoms, but I don't see any beans, which is mind-boggling to me. I can't figure out why the blossoms have been here for like weeks, but I don't have any beans. It's just crazy. But the squash is doing good. But I want to focus more on vegetables that I need to preserve and ferment. So I'm going to be growing Napa cabbages, radishes, carrots, broccoli. Broccoli I'm not going to ferment, but and then we are going to do tomatoes, cucumbers, and peppers in the greenhouse so that we can make salsa and tomato sauce and can that for future use. And then we're going to grow less squash and zucchini and focus more on winter squash and acorn squash and pumpkins that I can can. I am going to have a section for herbs, and I want to grow lots of cold crops like cabbage, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, onions, carrots, peas, that kind of thing. And we're going to save the greenhouse for tomatoes, peppers, and cucumbers. So I feel like the past couple months have been an emotional roller coaster as far as like figuring out what I'm even doing here. But I think that just having the experience and figuring things out has really helped. It's really helped me figure out that like I can do this, and I'm just focusing my efforts in the wrong area. So I've done a lot of self-examination and examination of my garden and the success and the failures, and I've decided that I'm just focusing on the wrong crops. And I mean, we don't even eat corn. Our ketogenic lifestyle requires us to eat more leafy greens, more broccoli, and less starchy vegetables. Oh, the other thing I was going to add is I am going to learn how to grow sweet potatoes. I don't want to grow white potatoes because they're really not good for us, but sweet potatoes are. So I want to try to grow sweet potatoes next season, but I do want to make sure that I do plenty of research in advance to make sure that I'm not wasting my time like I did with the corn. GoPro, stop recording. Here's a little look inside of the greenhouse. So as you can see, I'm doing a great job growing weeds. And these tomato plants I actually started from seed way late, but they are doing okay. They're not as leafy and bushy as I feel like tomato plants should be, but I do have like a ton of little flowers and stuff on them. So I'm hoping that we get something from them, some type of fruit. This one's a lot smaller. Now the thing that we've learned, oh, and then here's my peppers. These are jalapenos, and then that one there is a Carolina Reaper plant. And then back in the back I've got habaneros, but they didn't even grow at all. Like, that's as big as they were when we bought them, which is so weird. That's never happened to me before. As you can see, the beds that we built, and we did do a video on building these beds, and it was back when we had snow on the ground. But we built these beds, and it turns out that you're not supposed to grow plants low in a greenhouse. I mean, unless the plastic comes all the way down, but our plastic doesn't come all the way down. We have walls there, and then the plastic's in the top. So what we should have done and didn't do is build the tables all the way around, and then the top of the beds should have been level with this. And then most people I've noticed in Alaska grow their tomatoes and stuff in the greenhouse in pots or buckets. So in the spring we've got our work cut out for us. We need to take these beds apart and build them higher so that they're level with the plastic part of the greenhouse. And then I can't remember what else I was going to say. GoPro, stop recording. So that's an updated look at our garden, and I hope that it's been beneficial to somebody out there. And maybe you can, if you're planning to move to Alaska, or you already have and you're thinking about starting to learn how to be self-sufficient, just understanding what I did wrong and why will help you make better decisions in your garden and in your self-sufficient endeavors. And hopefully somebody could have learned from my mistakes and not just me.